We continued on our escape tank to make it to one of the mainland bases where we knew we could find refuge and safety from the outer darkness surrounding us, around these now plague-owned conquered lands. The world has turned darker than ever in these days, as what's good left in the world tries to survive. With the plague owning the garages, it has left us weaker and weaker as time goes by, and uncertain of any victory ahead as the plague continues to grow stronger through more claimed resources and newer improved tanks now being developed. Those that have decided to fight for good and against the plague have come together through a network of bases around the lands and have been able to resist many of the plague's attacks in some parts. But that has changed until now, after losing our base in the Dead Rail lands. I can only imagine more will fall given our limitations, and crews heard of giving up hope and deciding to join the plague. Hope is all we have left as we continue to push forward. The Russian father looked out over the lands they traveled through with those that they had survived with in the Dead Rail attack, as his sworn to protect daughter looked on the other way, still upset about the decision the Russian father had made never to allow her to help in the fight. As we continued on our way, the commander of the escape tank turns to announce the reach of their destination they'd been waiting for. The destination of one of the Muffins' main bases in the lands of Castilla. The escape tank pulls up and parks to the center of the town as the Russian father hops down along with some of the other survivors. He turns to look at his daughter, still upset, and turn the other way as he turns back while one of the base commanders approaches him. "Sir, we're glad to see your safe arrival after hearing about the SOS we received from Dead Rail." But the Russian father knew he had to speak with the highest authority of the Muffins, and fast as he looked up at the highest point and rushed past the base commander to make his ascent to where the leaders resided. A meeting of the leaders was being held as the Russian father approaches while calling out, "Where are the original Muffins?" The high authority hears the voice and turns around to see the Russian father as one proclaims, "You're alive!" "Of course I am, I'm Russian. We have lost our first base in the Dead Rail lands, and we need to warn the other bases. The numbers and strength of the plague are getting to the point I don't think most of our bases can withstand. We need additional support." The Russian father angrily finishes as one of the high leaders looks at the others before responding. Dead Rail wasn't alone in the attack. We lost hundreds of other tanks and ambushes surrounding parts in the northern lands as well. The original Muffin division departed to help in the attacks after hearing of the swarm. The Russian father turns around and walks to look out over the high grounds of Castilla, wondering if hope was really coming to an end, as one of the high leaders walks to join him. "Have you found anything else and what might help us?" the Russian father asks as the high leader responds. "Some of our light tanks recently spotted weaker plague supply chain routes. We might have a chance to ambush and claim more resources for our survival. A large group is being assembled as we speak to depart for the attack." "Perfect. We must act then," the Russian father says as he descends back down to the crowds and tanks below to help in the divisions prepare for another one of the Muffin supply chain attacks on the plague. Supply chains of the plague became the only way for the Muffins to claim resources they needed to fight and survive after the fall of the garages to the plague. Tanks begin to fire up their engines and depart as the Russian father also starts up his tank to join the attack, while his daughter looks on in disappointment to see them travel back out into the plague-infested lands. The Russian father and his division was able to make it to the coordinates to get eyes on the weaker plague supply line that was moving resources to their other areas of attacks. He looked over and watched as tanks traveled through, taking supplies and resources to frontline areas, which would soon be used to destroy more of them and their people. Even with the weaker supply chain lines, he didn't know if attacking these like they had done many times before was still safe, as the plague would have to know by now it was becoming a common tactic of the Muffins to attack these and take what they could for their survival. But the Russian father knew they didn't have a choice, since resources were becoming more scarce in these times. "What would you have us do, Commander?" a tanker asked as the Russian father puts down his binoculars to respond. "It appears this line is weaker, as we were told, and the resources this line carries looks very useful for what we and our divisions need. We fire upon the line on my signal and flank from each side to surround them. I'm hoping with our numbers we can quickly bring them to surrender, as to not damage much of the supplies we need to capture." The commander salutes and radios into the division to wait for the signal to fire as cannons begin to take aim. The Russian father asked the division to aim to take out the leading and rear tanks first to trap the line. He watches for the line to align with their tanks as the moment arrives. "Fire!" the Russian father yells as a loud blast explodes behind him, destroying the front and rear vehicles of the plague traveling ahead. The impactful explosions on the plague tanks cause their lines to come to a stop and begin to immediately turn their turrets towards the oncoming approach of the Muffins. They align their sights as the Muffin tanks begin to race towards and spread out to flank the plague supply line in front of them. The plague fires back with a retaliating blow back at the Muffin tanks as explosions blast all around them. The Russian father realizes the plague tanks aren't surrendering, as he orders his division to fire upon the line in hopes of their surrender, but gets fired back upon again, realizing this might not be as peaceful as he had hoped. Just then, other hidden plague tanks, waiting for an ambush on their supporting lines, come rolling out. While firing back only to confirm what the Russian father had hoped wouldn't be the case, as now it would seem that the plague was much more prepared and learned of our tactics we've tried to survive on since the divide. The Russian father looks on in fear as the once known weak supply line is now looking stronger than theirs, with the backup of additional plague tanks rolling towards them. Rounds continue to fire upon each other as plague tanks continue to move upon them as planned. Muffin tanks begin to get destroyed from the heavy support as they continue to try and fire back, realizing it was the plague's intention to look weak all along and then have us be lured into their trap. The Russian father yells for their retreat as their tanks begin to get ripped apart from the blows taken upon them by the plague, realizing there isn't any hope in escaping this trap they have fallen into. The sounds of echoing rounds from across the valley begin to be heard, smashing into the plague tanks all around them as the Russian father looks over to notice the original Muffins. Coming into view to save them and fire upon the plague support while taking out some tanks instantly. The plague lines begin to take their attention off the Russian father's hopeless division now in flames as they turn to focus on who they knew to be their greatest enemy since the beginning, and not just the Russian father. Explosions light up tanks all around as the Muffins begin to move in and fire upon the remaining plague support lines resisting. Rounds hit against each side while more tanks fall from the plague that wasn't expecting the additional support. As the fight comes to an end, the failure of realizing most of the resources needed for capture had become destroyed, and attacking these plague supply lines may no longer be worth the sacrifice, as too much is becoming lost, with too little return. The Russian father climbs out of his partially destroyed tank as the original Muffins approach and stop their tanks to meet their original Muffin friend, along with the graveyard tanks that have moved with them, and taking out many of the plague's divisions and helping them resist against many attacks across the land. As the original Muffins warmly greet their Russian friend and the other surviving tankers, they tell the Russian father of this tactic the plague has been using to reinforce their supply lines from all over the lands, and many of their divisions have recently fallen into this trap by the plague. But how will the Muffins be able to fight on? How long will many of their remaining divisions throughout the land be able to survive on the slowly depleting amount of resources they have left, without the help of garages anymore, or the plague lines they used to rely on?